Hi everyone, I'm Beth, and if you've just joined, welcome to my new channel. This is my tutorial on how to do a cat's eye in coloured pencil. I'll list everything I've used down below so you can have a look after. So firstly, I like to use the white to draw in all of my highlights. Even though you can't see it very well on the paper, if I go over it with any other coloured pencils, the white creates a sort of barrier so that I know where my highlights are going to be, and therefore I can avoid that area of the paper. Next I'm taking a yellow ochre pencil to create a background colour for my eye. At this stage I don't need to worry too much about how much pigment is being laid on the paper, as I'm going to layer over the top of it later. I do, however, press a little harder on areas I know are deeper in colour, such as the outer iris. I like to blend my base colour using the Zest pencil blender and a small paintbrush for better precision. When you use a pencil blender, you really only need to use a small amount. It's much better to use less than you need rather than flooding your paper. The pencil blender does tend to make the colours look a little darker, but don't worry, as once it's dried it will return to normal. Once the blender is dry, I go back in with my yellow ochre and layer on top to make the colour bolder. As you can see, using the blender enables me to build more colour over my base layer. At this point, I also go over my white highlighted areas. Here with a dark grey pencil, I'm just sketching in the location of the cat's pupil. Next I'm using a brighter yellow to highlight the centre of the iris around the pupil, and then also a terracotta shade to create some of the depth around the outer eye. I press harder around the outer eye and then use light, almost feathery strokes to blend the colour inwards. To do this I'm applying very light pressure and using the side of the pencil for a softer effect, always moving inwards towards the pupil. After this step, I will also use my blender again. Here is where I add the slight tinge of green to the cat's eye, again using very light strokes to build up and control the colour. Afterwards I use my original ochre colour over the top to blend the green and get rid of any harsh lines. From here it's all about layering everything. Using the terracotta, yellow and the green, I keep building on my colours until I achieve the desired effect. I want to create more depth of colour around the outer iris as the viewer's eye is drawn in towards the pupil. I think that the eye is the most important feature of any animal drawing and often are what draws the viewer's attention in the first place. Using a bluey grey shade, I'm adding a light layer over the highlight. Highlights aren't just areas of white block colour and often contain a variety of different shades that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see. This next step is one of my favourite parts, as you really start to see your drawing coming to life. Using a purple toned brown, I begin to add an outline where areas are darker, then blend this inwards. I'm also at this point using a brighter orange to add a pop of colour. I use a mid-toned brown to create some of the finer details in the iris, and also to create a transition shade between the orange and the darker brown. I also start to accentuate the pupil more with the black pencil. I layer all of my colours as desired using the pencil blender in between to create depth. Coloured pencils take time to build up, as you can see here. When I first started with this medium, I really struggled to get past what we like to call the ugly stage, where everything is a bit pale, wishy-washy and unblended. But the best piece of advice I can really give you is to not give up. You will eventually get to a stage where you see everything coming together. The more you layer your colours, the better your end result will be. I use the black pencil to create a fine outline for the darkest areas, building up colour where it's slightly thicker towards the outer corner of the eye. I carefully blend this inwards to the brown to avoid any harsh lines. At this point I also used a bit of white to make the pupil a little slimmer, as I wasn't completely happy with it. I use a light pink skin tone to add the fleshy areas of the eye and a lighter grey to blend it. I also use my blue to add a very fine wash of colour to create a more realistic look. Going back in with the previous colours I used, I add darker areas and add some of the finer details. I use many colours layered over each other to blend everything together well. After much more layering with colours, I use my mid-toned brown to start to build a fine outline for the inner corner of the eye. I then use a dark grey to sketch in some of the shadowing, remembering not to go over the areas of white you've already created. If you do accidentally go over them, as I did here, use your white over the top with quite firm pressure and this will bring most of the colour back. Here I'm starting to create the bottom and the top eyelid with the flesh tone I used previously. Using very light pressure, I go around the eye and then blend this out with my pencil blender. I'm adding another layer of the flesh tone and then I go over this with my white and also a light grey pencil. The eyelid of a cat's eye isn't particularly pink, so I really don't want the pink to be vibrant. It tends to be more of a very pale grey purple shade. If you've ever had a ginger cat before, you will notice that a very common feature on them is very dark areas of pigmentation on the lower eyelids. I'm creating that here, first using a dark brown and then adding some black for effect. I also realised at this point that I missed this feature on the left eye, so I add this in now. I finally add a few more details with my black and my white pencil, and then the eye is complete. Thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and give the videos a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.